Hello everyone, and welcome to the James Goudros Talk Show. I am James Goudros, CEO, founder, and journalist of JDG Enterprise, and I will be your host. Today, we're going to talk about neurodiversity and how it ranges between different people. I personally was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was 6 years old, which, in case you didn't know, is a high-functioning form of autism. As one would expect, a person who has a neurological condition has a brain that functions differently than one from an average person. Sometimes these differences are to a person's advantage, but other times they are to their disadvantage. My goal for this documentary is to leave you all with lots of knowledge on what it is like to be a non-neurotypical person so that you can walk away knowing much more than you did before. With that being said, let's get started. Alright, so over the course of this video, I plan to engage with you in ways that are both fictional and non-fictional. This way, I will ensure that you will be informed while being entertained at the same time. To start off, I would like to share with you all a clip from a stop-motion animation short film I made last year titled Autism and Acceptance. Enjoy! Peter should be here any minute now. It'll be great to see him after so long. Ah, here he is now. It's open. Good to see you, cuz. Peter, my man, it's been too long. I know, right? How you been, dude? Oh, I've been doing pretty well. What about you, bro? Well, I've definitely been better. Oh no, what's going on, Pete? Well, Mike, you know how I'm an Aspergian and it makes me different than most people? Oh yeah, that must be tough, my man. It sure is, cuz, on top of that, to make matters worse, I had yet another encounter with Samuel today. Is he that jerky golden statue guy? That's him, alright. Man, I wonder why that guy is always picking on people who are a little different. I wonder that too, bro. And he also keeps picking on my best friend, David. He's the upright Komodo dragon with the different colors, right? That's the one. I have no idea why he can only see our flaws and not our strengths. Well, cuz, unfortunately, most of the jocks in this world are exactly like that. I used to be picked on all the time for having a head that stays sideways up until people finally saw my value. What did you do that made people change their opinion of you, Mike? Well, Pete, I'm not sure if you've ever thought of this, but having a head that always faces sideways has made it essential for me to learn how to walk very well sideways and have excellent peripheral vision. Wow, you're right, cuz. That's definitely a gift that not many people pertain, and it makes you a very talented individual for sure. It sure does, bro. Unfortunately, nobody realized this until I managed to stop a crime that was happening in an alleyway late at night, which I spotted out of the corner of my eye. Because most people's peripheral vision isn't great, they would not have spotted it while looking straight ahead, especially with how far down the alleyway it was happening. Whoa, man, that's incredible! It sure was, dude. As soon as I saw this, I whipped out my cell phone and called the cops. They told me that the man I caught was a top 10 FBI most wanted criminal, and the reward for catching him was a grant of $5,000. Holy smokes, bro, that must have made you feel the best you've ever felt in your life. It sure did, cuz, especially since the whole story was broadcast on local news the next day. Well, I'm sure that must have made everyone around here realize how great your unique abilities are, and they finally started giving you the respect you deserve, Michael. It sure did, Peter. It still thrills me to this day that it took just a little gesture like that being televised for people to finally stop focusing on my differences in a negative way and instead focus on them in a positive way. Well, cuz, I'm glad that after all that ridicule you were finally able to start swimming in vindication. It sure was a dream that came true, my man. And don't worry, I'm sure it'll happen to you and David very soon. I sure hope so too, bro. You've definitely boosted my confidence in the possibility of something like that happening for David and me. It will, dude. Trust me. And if you guys want to find a way to prove yourselves to that Samuel guy, just think of a weakness he has that works in your favor. Well, as you probably know, most popular snobbish jocks are kinda dumb, and he's no exception. On top of that, he's not as observant as I am, and his memory is total rubbish. Lastly, he moves very slowly and can't run nearly as fast as David can. There you go. I'm sure you and David could easily figure out a way to rub your skills and his weaknesses in his face simultaneously. You're right. Anyway, it's getting late. I should probably be getting home now. Thanks so much for having me, Michael, and I'll let you know how everything goes. It was my pleasure, Peter. Best of luck to you and David on your future achievements. Thanks, man. See you later. See you soon. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that clip. Hopefully, after seeing that, you all now have a better idea of what it's like to be on the spectrum and that our condition isn't as bad as many folks think it is. However, it would be selfish of me to act like my condition is the only one in this world that's troublesome. As I'm sure we all know, anyone who isn't neurotypical has a harder time functioning in society than most people. That is why it is only fair that everyone has their voices heard. We are going to hear from some of those people shortly to get a better sense of it. With that being said, sit back, relax, and get ready for an entertaining session of learning. Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm here with my first guest, Rachel McCormick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me, James.
My pleasure. So, you previously mentioned that you were born with ADHD.
Yes.
So my first question is, how has having ADHD affected your life in general?
In general, overall, I think it's impacted my school life, the way I learn, obviously. It's also impacted the way I communicate with people, friendships and relationships. It can impact how you process emotions too. So I think ADHD can kind of actually impact every area of your life. But there's definitely ways that you can alleviate the way it impacts it, if it impacts it negatively. But I would say it kind of impacts every area of my life. Mostly school and maybe friendships sometimes, but...
All right. Thank you. My next question is, what are the most negative drawbacks that have been tied to it?
Negative drawbacks? For me, definitely, I think it definitely makes it harder to focus on school and prioritize or manage my time, I would say. Mm-hmm. Especially when you want to do the schoolwork or you want to go out with your friends, you have plans, but you can't get up to do it. There's you don't have you have the motivation, but for some reason you have the inability to actually start, which can be very difficult and frustrating because you do want to start and it might seem like you're just being lazy or you don't want to do it, but really it's just kind of about how your brain is processing things, I guess, processing information, or how stimulated you are. It's just I guess your brain functions kind of differently, so I don't know, I'm rambling now, very ADHD of me.
No worries. Well, that's good to know. Third question, are there any advantages to having it that other people don't always see?
I definitely think that there can be advantages to having ADHD. I think that it allows you to look at the world in a different perspective, and because you process information a bit differently than others, I think people with ADHD can often be very creative and think outside the box a lot, and they have a different way of communicating that can bring a new perspective to situations or projects or so stuff like that. Also, the problem with ADHD is irregulated focus, right? Mm-hmm. So although sometimes it's hard to focus, there's also on the flip side, there's hyper-focusing on things that you're really interested in. So when you do hyper-focus on a task, it can help you get it done pretty quickly, or you can really get enthralled in it. But there can be downsides to that too, just because you need to stop for breaks every once in a while. But I definitely think there's people say that it's a superpower, and I agree sometimes. I think that it definitely, I I'm glad I have ADHD, and I think it makes me who I am. So I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't say I would never necessarily want to get rid of it, but yeah.
Okay. So my fourth question is, what are the main techniques you have needed to use to be able to flourish in the world like most other people?
Techniques? There's a lot of coping strategies I think I've developed over the years because of my ADHD. Just like little, at work when I have to do a monotonous task that's very boring, I've noticed I would turn it into games in my head. I used to be a cashier at a grocery store, and I did not enjoy that. And I would get in trouble a lot for not smiling because it was hard to hide my boredom on my face. But you try to kind of just make up little games or things in your head to stay stimulated and keep yourself focused on your task. For schoolwork, music helps me a lot. I really like listening to music while I do work because having, something stimulating in the background helps me focus. I used to, when the SLC was open, I used to really love coming to the 6th floor, which is kind of the casual floor, because I liked hearing other people chat around me and just hang out with their friends. I know it can be distracting to other people, but I found it stimulating and engaging, actually. It helped me focus. Okay, fair enough.
So, fifth question. When you were younger, did you have a harder time making friends as a result of your condition?
I definitely think I had a harder time making friends. I think I was a little strange to the other kids sometimes. I was just very weird. I liked to make up stories and imagine games and play pretend, and I think other kids didn't really understand why I thought it was fun or what I thought was fun about it. But I did have a few close friends who I'm still friends with to this day, and I think they actually have ADHD too, but it did definitely impact me making friends. I got made fun of when I was a little younger as well. So I think, and then with that comes, it was harder to process emotions as well. So it's very confusing when other kids don't really understand you and you don't really understand why they don't get you. But so that can make you feel very, I think, left out and lonely or insecure. But I think as I've grown up, I've found a good group of friends who really accept me for who I am, even if I'm a little stranger sometimes. But yeah, I think it definitely impacts the way that you make friends.
Very interesting.
Especially when you're younger as a kid and you're trying to meet people and form connections when you're new at school.
All right. So my sixth question is, have you faced a lot of prejudice as a result of the world generally not being accepting of those who are not considered neurotypical?
Prejudice, I think there are times when people don't understand because they're neurotypical. I think a lot of that, school has luckily been pretty understanding with accommodations. I think that happens a lot at work when I'm working and I get overwhelmed or I get overstimulated by my environment. I was a waitress at a restaurant. And then I get very emotional and anxious about it quickly because there's a lot happening at once. And I think it's a little harder for people to understand that I just need a moment to cool down and process my emotions, and that'll be fine. I think it depends on, I guess there's many different experiences, depends on the person, but I think there can be some prejudice towards people who are neurodivergent for sure. Yeah, and can be quite upsetting.
So, seventh question, have you ever needed to take any kind of medication or prescription to help survive any chaos your condition may have caused you?
I did. When I was looking out for a diagnosis and I finally talked to a therapist, a psychologist, and they diagnosed me, we talked about medications, and I'm prescribed Concerta. So I take either 12 or 24 milligrams, I take just one pill now. My doctor said I can kind of go up depending on what I need to take, but I am prescribed medication. I think it can be very helpful on days when I really need to focus, But I also like to make sure I'm not like overusing the medication, and like on the weekends I try to not take the medication because I have a break from school, and I think it's important to have a balance.
Right. So, 8th question, have your family and friends always been supportive of you and accommodated you accordingly?
My mom has been incredibly supportive of me. I'm very lucky. When I told her I was, thinking about looking for some type of answer about like what was going on, she was very supportive. She did a lot of research to help me. She would bring me to doctor appointments, and she did lots of research. She still does a lot of research, and she watches YouTube videos about ADHD and stuff to be able to try to understand me and my brain. So I think that my family's been very supportive of me. I've been very lucky.
So, 9th question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult has it been for you to flourish in this world, with 1 being not hard at all and 10 being the hardest it could be?
Flourish in this world? Flourish is a good word. What was the scale? 1 being?
Not the least difficult, 10 being the most.
I would say... Ooh, that's a tough question, James. I would say it's harder than maybe most people. I would say it depends on the day, maybe. Okay. But I'll say 6.
Okay.
I'll give this one 6. So it's a little bit harder, but some days are maybe a 7 or an 8, but some days are like a 5 or a 4.
Fair enough. Okay, so final question. Would you say that although your condition is something that will remain with you for the rest of your life, it gets easier and easier for you to be able to manage yourself with it every day?
I definitely think it gets easier. The more I learn about it, the more I read about coping strategies or different types of coping mechanisms and ways to help, just to function with how my brain functions already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To not work against it, but work with it. So I do think it gets easier and easier the more you learn about it. What was the other part of the question?
Just that it gets easier every day.
Yeah, I definitely think it would get easier every day. Like I said, some days are easier than others, or maybe if there's a big stressful thing in my life, that period of time might be a little bit harder. But I definitely think it gets easier as you go on, the more you learn about it.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you, Rachel. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you very much, James. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. You as well.
Alright, so I think we can all agree that we've learned a thing or two from that. Now, before my next guest comes in, I want to share with you guys something I created just recently. During my years of high school, I took grade 11 playwriting as one of my courses. For the final project of that class, my classmates and I were all required to write a 1-act play of our choice. For that play, we were required to choose some sort of issue that our play would reflect. For my play, I decided to write a storyline about a 17-year-old boy named Alexander Libra, who, coincidentally, was born with Asperger's, just like me, and as a result, lives a very similar life. While the play has never actually been staged or screened, I decided to create a short animated clip representing an important scene from it. Enjoy!
Alex should be here soon. I'd better check to see if everything is set up the way he likes it. Let's see. He hates it when the thermostat is anything higher than 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I can see it's at 67 now, so that's perfect. And the curtains are pulled out far enough, the air purifier is on. That's perfect. And just in time, too. Come in, Alex, it's open. Come on in, fella. Thanks. So how was school today? Fine for the most part. What brought it down? Well, you remember my friend Joe? Yeah, the kid with ADHD, whose last name is after a horoscope just like ours. What about him? He got upset with me for correcting him when he asked me to give him a second to do something when it took him almost half a minute. That's too bad. Did he forgive you, though? Yes, he did. He asked me to look over his business report to see if he made any mistakes. He then complained that I was being condescending when I was pointing out the first 20 mistakes he made. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. The important thing, though, is that you understand why you upset him, do you? Of course. And that wasn't your intention, right? Most certainly not. And you're working on not doing that as much, right? Right. Then that's all that matters. I guess, but I also upset my parents and sister with my overreactions, and I hate doing that. Well, the important thing is that you're working on it, right? Right. I don't think any of them understand, though, how amazing it is that you notice those kinds of things. It is? Of course.
Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed that clip. I was told by several of my classmates back in the day that they felt my play was both informative and entertaining, and I hope you felt the same way about it. Now we're going to hear from my second guest. Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm here with my second guest, Megan Pirati. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Megan, you told me you have GAD.
Yes, I do, and I've had it for the majority of my life.
So my first question is, how has having GAD affected your life in general?
I think it's definitely made things more challenging for me than someone who doesn't deal with it, and I find I get really overwhelmed. And I think that also I miss out on some opportunities because I end up being so anxious.
Oh, I see. So my second question is, what are the most negative drawbacks that have been tied to it?
I think with other people, I think people get annoyed with me easier because like I get so anxious and I'm so nervous that I tell people, I'm like, oh my god, I'm really, really nervous. And I find sometimes people who don't see the world the same way as me, they think like, oh, that's stupid, or like just why are you being nervous? Like there's nothing to worry about, but I can't help but feel that way. And so because they don't see the world the same way as me, I think sometimes there's like a disconnect, and you know, they can be a little bit harder for them to kind of understand where I'm coming from.
Fair enough. So my third question is, are there any advantages to having it that other people don't always see?
That's a good question. I think in a way there is. I think normally because it's such a big part of my life, and I always see it as the negative of it, but I think because I'm so anxious, I've become very like hyper aware, and I find that I can like, if someone's having a hard time, I'm like more observant, and I can pick up on how people are feeling. So sometimes I feel like my anxiety has made me more caring and observant of other people. And so I definitely think that's like a positive that's come out of it.
That's very interesting. So my fourth question is, what are the main techniques you have needed to use to be able to flourish in the world like most people?
I definitely need to learn to take a step back and breathe. I tend to get so overwhelmed so quickly, and I tend to shut down, and so kind of learning to breathe and take care of myself and talk to myself differently, because I find I can get really negative and disappointed in myself, and just kind of realizing that I function a little bit differently, so I need to treat myself a little differently.
Okay, so my fifth question is, when you were younger, did you have a harder time making friends as a result of your condition?
I do think that I did, because I was so worried about what people thought of me, and I still struggle with that. I've become so like paranoid that like every little thing I do is like, oh, did I hurt them? Did I do? And it kind of like takes over everything. And so I can really overthink friendships, and I think that's caused me to kind of have some difficulties making some friends growing up and maintaining friendships.
Okay. So my sixth question is, have you faced a lot of prejudice as a result of the world generally not being accepting of those who are not considered neurotypical?
I definitely think people have not really considered how I function in certain situations. Like there hasn't always been a lot of support in school and like modifying certain things for certain types of way people operate. I think in general, I haven't faced too much prejudice. I think I've been lucky, but I know a lot of people that have a harder time with that.
Right, makes a lot of sense. So, 7th question, have you ever needed to take any kind of medication or prescription to help survive any chaos your condition may have caused you?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I have been on and off struggling with it, where I find like, oh, I'm doing okay, and then I'll get really, really, really bad, and I get really scared. I'm like, how am I gonna live like this? So I've been, a lot of times in my life, I've gone to seek like help, and then they put me on medication, but I find I have a really hard time staying on medication for some reason. And then I had a slight breakdown over the summer, and I got really scared, and I've been speaking to a therapist ever since then, and I've been on medication. So I'm currently on medication, and I think and it's the longest I've been on medication, and I think it is kind of helping me, but like I definitely need it. Like I even with it, I don't think I still struggle so much. So to take it off of it, I think it would be even harder for me.
Fair enough. So, my 8th question is, have your family and friends always been supportive of you and accommodated you accordingly?
I think a lot of my friends have, because they also struggle with mental illness, and I think also maybe people in our kind of like age group tend to get it a little bit more than like older generations. So I definitely find like people understand more where I'm coming from, even if they don't deal with it, because they know a lot of people that deal with it. But my parents, I find maybe it's a generational thing, but like they don't quite understand it. Obviously they know there's something wrong, like that I function differently, because like I'll be throwing up when I'm so anxious, or I'll be like shaking so much, and I'll be crying, and I'll feel like I'm paralyzed, and so I'm like, that's not a normal reaction to being stressed, is literally, throwing up and like shaking and everything like that. But my parents seem to still think that like, oh, it's okay, don't be nervous, like life's too short to be nervous, or like they only want the best for me. But sometimes I just think because they don't deal with it, and because they're from a mindset that's quite different, like from an older generation, it's harder for them to understand. Because of that, I think I probably had to struggle more than I would have liked to, because they just don't quite understand it. So they expect me to be able to do things that like I have a harder time doing.
Okay. Now, 9th question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult has it been for you to flourish in this world, with 1 being not hard at all and 10 being the hardest it could be?
Well, I spoke to my therapist, and I asked her, I'm like, because I was like, just out of curiosity, how bad is it? Like, because I find sometimes I'm like, maybe what I'm going through is not as that difficult. Maybe it's just, and I don't understand it. And she says, you go through a lot of pain, and it's really hard for you. And I think having that reassurance kind of reminded me that like, I do have a hard time, because I think like sometimes I want to be normal so much that like I tend to diminish how I feel, and know that like, oh well, other people must have it like worse, and so like I don't really validate how hard things are for me. But if I had to put it on a scale, I think it varies depending all the time. Sometimes I feel less anxious if I feel more comfortable with people, or like depending on how I am in life. But I'd probably say like a 6 or a 7, maybe even higher depending on the time. It's hard to put a number on it, but I think it's definitely been a lot harder.
Fair enough. So my 10th question is, would you say that although your condition is something that will remain with you for the rest of your life, it gets easier and easier for you to be able to manage yourself with it every day?
I think like it is hard accepting that like it is probably just a part of who I am. I think when I was younger, I was just thinking, oh, I'll just fix myself. And I won't have this anymore. But I think realizing it, I'm probably going to be something I'm going to deal with like the rest of my life. But I think with time, you learn that things aren't as bad as they seem. You learn that, to take a deep breath, to remove yourself from situations. So by learning new tools and like taking the time to focus and figure out, well, how do I need to operate to be able to function in this environment, or what do I need to do that's going to work for me? And I think over time that becomes easier. And so but like life is always going to be challenging, and as you get older, there's more stuff that are challenges with school and everything. But definitely with time, I think things do get a little bit easier, but it's always going to be hard.
Fair enough. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much for doing this.
Of course.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. All right. So I hope we all learned something from that interview as well. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with the American sitcom known as The Big Bang Theory and its protagonist, Sheldon Cooper. Some of you may also know that although this has never been confirmed, he has displayed traits of Asperger's syndrome. Now, I would like to show you a clip from an episode called The Itchy Brain Simulation, where he made his best friend, Leonard Hofstadter, experience what it is like to walk a mile in the shoes of someone like him in regards to how he feels about issues that have not yet been resolved, and as a result, are giving him a rather itchy brain. Enjoy.
How is it I can conceptualize a methodology of examining dark matter in the universe, but can't figure out how to fix a novelty squirt flower?
I think the real question is why you waste your time with cheap, childish pranks.
There's probably a deep reason, which I'd be happy to discuss with you over some peanut brittle in a can.
Okay, Sheldon, I am out of options. Video store owner Nurses Manukian has no next of kin.
Well, you seem hot under the collar. Or is that the sweater?
Oh, no. It's because I spent all afternoon at the Armenian church where his funeral mass was held. According to Father Solakian, no one attended. Luckily, my trip wasn't a complete waste. I lit a candle and prayed for your death, but I'm not Armenian, so it probably won't work. This is over, right?
Oh, not necessarily. I suggest you look for long-lost relatives, either in Armenia or Lebanon.
Listen to me, Sheldon. I am not going to Lebanon to return Super Mario Brothers the movie!
It might be fun. You love hummus.
Why isn't this bothering you? Isn't your brain getting itchy? This is on your card. This could be ruining your credit score. Why isn't this making you crazy?
Leonard, I have something to tell you, but I want you to promise not to flip out.
What?
7 years ago, I found out the DVD was late and I paid for it.
What?
I was going to mention it at the time, but then I thought, someday, this might be a teachable moment.
What?
Sheldon, that was diabolical.
I know. And it wasn't easy. Do you have any idea what it's like to wait for years and never know if you're going to finally get satisfaction?
Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed that clip. as that is sometimes how I feel whenever I have an itch in my brain that I can't scratch. Now, please welcome my third and final guest for today. Hello everyone, welcome back. I am here by myself for my third and final interview. Now, my third guest, Tim Godsall, who is a former high school classmate of mine, unfortunately could not make it here today. So, instead, I emailed him the questions and he sent them back with his responses. So, let's get started. I asked him the same questions that I asked the other two guests. For starters, number 1, how has having dyslexia affected your life in general? That's his condition, dyslexia. He responded with, it's been expensive at times getting the right programs and computers for school, but it has also been endearing and helpful at times with the right spin. Number 2, what are the most negative drawbacks that have been tied to it? I get made fun of sometimes, but I am often joking with them. It also has me mixing things up a lot of the time, like inviting people to Sunday instead of Saturday, or showing up to the Eaton Center instead of Eglinton. Number 3, are there any advantages to having it that other people don't always see? His answer? I get access to a computer, notes, and extra time for examinations all the time in school, a luxury not afforded to most students a lot of the time. Also, if I forget someone's name, I can ask how it's spelled because of my dyslexia without telling them I forgot. Number 4, what are the main techniques you have needed to use to be able to flourish in the world like most other people? Technology helps me a lot. Even writing this now, I am using a voice-to-text program with dyslexia font. I also often have someone help me edit or write things down. Number 5, when you were younger, did you have a harder time making friends as a result of your condition? I don't think so. I always managed to play it up for laughs. I am a big-time extrovert and don't have trouble making friends, and dyslexia does not come up often until you have already gotten someone's number. Number 6, have you faced a lot of prejudice as a result of the world generally not being accepting of those who are not considered neurotypical? Yeah, you run into problems pretty often. Sometimes people ask if I'm under the influence when writing, if they don't know me, or call me stupid, or even just think I am making it up for attention. Number 7, have you ever needed to take any kind of medication or prescription to help survive any chaos your condition may have caused you? I take ADHD medication. It really helps me focus, but at the cost of a healthy appetite and a shorter temper, but I have learned to work with those aspects. Number 8, have your family and friends always been supportive of you and accommodated you accordingly? Almost always, yes. Family members are out of touch, but I don't like them much in any case. A lot of the time, my family and friends will help me edit my work or practice spelling with me. Number 9, on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult has it been for you to flourish in this world, with 1 being not hard at all and 10 being the hardest it could be? His answer, 4. I certainly have to put in effort, but as long as I do, I can thrive. Only on rare occasions do I run into real problems. That being said, my confrontational disposition, outgoing nature, and computer access help a lot. Someone without those traits and the same neurotypical disorders may be more like a 6, I imagine. And finally, number 10, would you say that although your condition is something that will remain with you the rest of your life, it gets easier and easier for you to be able to manage yourself with it every day? His answer, practice helps. I have seen improvement over the years and technology keeps progressing with me. All right, let's give it up for Tim, everybody. Thank you, Tim, for these responses, and hope to hear from you again soon. All right, so I hope we can say we all learned a lot from our guests here today. It was a pleasure walking through this journey with you, and I hope to see you all next time for another episode of the James Goudros Talk Show. Bye for now.